so I'll be starting you guys off today. And I just want to start off my program with a quick question. Can anyone just give me anything they know about Eisenhower? It's not a trick question.
He was president when I was born.
President when she was born.
Supreme Commander.
Supreme Commander.
One of the few five-star generals.
One of the few five-star generals.
Father of the interstate highway system.
Interstate
Yeah.
system.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's a good one. Any other things? And those are the big ones. Five-star general, president of the United States, supreme leader of the Allied forces. These are all incredibly grand ideas that we associate with Dwight D. Eisenhower. And what we have behind us, though, is a look into the personal side of him. It's a look into the only home that him and his wife Mamie ever owned. And with that, if I were to visit any of your guys' homes, I might learn a lot about you. What your favorite colors were, who your friends were, what books you like to read, where you vacationed to last summer. And you are all about to have a chance to explore that, but for Dwight D. Eisenhower himself. As you look around, you might be wondering, why did Dwight and Mamie choose here? They were both incredibly well-traveled, so why Gettysburg, Pennsylvania? And to understand that, we have to go way back to the start of Ike's military career. To start off, Ike was not born here, and neither was Mamie. Ike was born in Denison, Texas, raised in Abilene, Kansas, while his wife was born in Boone, Iowa, raised in Denver, Colorado. So they don't have a close connection here. But Ike attended West Point from 1911 to 1915. He actually graduated kind of on the lower end of his class. He was a bit of a prankster during his time. Obviously, went on to do great things nonetheless. Additionally, after graduating, he met his wife, Mamie Eisenhower. The two were enchanted with one another, were engaged within a year of meeting, and they had their first son, a little boy named Dowd Eisenhower, nicknamed Little Icky, after they were married. After this, Eisenhower receives his first real military assignment. It's at a place called Camp Colt. And don't say anything, but does anyone know where Camp Colt is? Or what it is? Well, I'll give you guys a hint. I mean, you guys have been here for the battlefield, you've been to Camp Colt. Camp Colt's all around us. It's in Gettysburg. And what it is a tank training camp. It was set up in 1917 to help with World War I. And Ike has been assigned the challenging task of running it. And this is a troubling and difficult task for a number of reasons. To start off, Ike wants to be fighting in the Great War. He doesn't really think there's going to be another one. Most people don't. And he wants to be with his fellow West Point cadets on the front lines. Instead, he's kind of stuck on the home front. Additionally, tanks are a brand new technology at this point. It's the first war they're ever really used in. Additionally, there's another issue, which is, can anyone guess how many tanks they have at the tank training camp?
1.
10, 2,
1.
5. Heard it from her. It was less than 1. It was 0. Yes. They had 0 tanks at the tank training camp. This proved incredibly difficult, I can imagine. So to kind of go around this problem, he got truck beds and he strapped machine guns to them, and then spray painted tanks to the side of them. And that was how they conducted their military drills. So he got pretty creative in that way. Again, there's another issue, which is something else is happening in 1917 other than World War I. It's a global event. Does anyone know? Pandemic. Guess it over here. The Spanish flu is happening in 1917. If you know anything about the Spanish flu, is that it primarily affects young adult populations. And Camp Colt is a bunch of young men living in incredibly close quarters. So to combat this, Eisenhower has to enact masking policies, social distancing, all stuff we're pretty familiar with today. But it's incredibly successful overall, and it's a defining moment in his early military career. All the while, he comes home to his wife Mamie and their young son, Little Icky, and they live in this really tiny apartment in Gettysburg, but you can still go visit today. All the while, this is kind of the only time that Ike and Mamie live together as a family union, because their little boy, Little Icky, would pass away at age 3 of scarlet fever, tragically. Ike would call this the greatest disaster and disappointment of his entire life. And like I said, we can see maybe why this place holds a significance to him and why he might come back here after all those years. It's after this, though, that they would have their second son, a boy named John Eisenhower, who would live until adulthood, and he would be their only living son. Overall, though, after the closing of Camp Cole after World War I ends, Ike spent some time in Panama, Paris, the Philippines. It's not really until World War II that the Ike we know is truly born. He jumps from lieutenant colonel to supreme leader of the Allied forces in just 24 months, which is an incredible climb up the ranks. And he plans and leads one of the, well, to this day, the largest amphibious invasion in military history, which we know today as D-Day. Yeah, absolutely. And it's an incredible success. At this point, Ike is a household name, and at the peak of his military career, he has retirement in his sights. So they start looking for places, and they land here. Mamie's in love with the property, and they get ready to do some renovations when a call comes. It's President Truman himself asking that Ike run for president. And, we can guess what happens. He agrees and is successful. But Mamie is a little bit disappointed by this because they've just acquired their retirement home. It's at this point she has estimated that they have moved 37 times.
Wow.
And she says to him, I've never had a home, so let's fix this up as a home. And at first, Ike is like, I'm only running for one term. He goes for two, but, and being the good husband he is, he agrees. And they begin renovations in 1953 and complete them in 1955, just in time for this place to serve as a second White House, essentially. He has a couple of really notable figures come and visit. You might know Winston Churchill, Nehru, President of India, and the Premier of Russia, Nikita Khrushchev, during the height of the Cold War, comes and visits. And a really fantastic story actually comes out of this. They're having really tense deliberations at the White House, and they're kind of at a standstill. And Ike doesn't really know how to get to him because they feel like they have nothing in common. But he realizes that they're both grandfathers. So he says, why don't you come on down to my farm? It's a pretty quick helicopter trip. They come here, and Khrushchev meets his grandchildren. And it's a whole fun thing. Khrushchev sits the kids on his lap, and he tells them what their names would be in Russian. He gives them little communist pins. It really is a moment of peace and de-escalation in the rampant Cold War conflict. And it's one of the highlights of his presidency. It's just a great afternoon. Overall, Mamie would call the time they spent here the greatest years of their entire life. So, with all that being said, you are about to enter that home, and you can spot as you go through relationships that I really value. It'll be a look into the heart and mind of one of the world's greatest leaders. With that being said, I'll give you guys, we're about to start the self-guided tour portion. I have a quick preservation message. Like I said, it's self-guided, so when you go into the house, there's going to be a little gray pamphlet